Hey fam, how is everyone tonight? How are you doing? Hello, Paula Knight. Thank you so much for joining. It's Dr. Eve. I hope you guys are well. Tonight I'm sharing about Sophia Charlotte. You guys, it's been an amazing discovery. Something I should not be totally surprised about. Hey, Hope Builders. How are you doing? I hope you are well. I am sharing another chapter about Queen Sophia Charlotte. Sophia Charlotte. How many of y'all have been watch the lifetime of Prince Harry? Is it Prince Harry and Meghan? Prince Harry and Meghan. In that movie on Sunday, at the end, the Queen of England showed Meghan a picture of the Black Queen. The Queen's name was Sophia Charlotte, and she's the queen that nobody ever talks about. So when I was at the Black Women's Roundtable event in Washington, I met the writer of the book Invisible Queen about Sophia Charlotte. And so I decided that I would share some of the nuggets in this book to help us understand our lineage, to help us understand our rightful place, to help us understand that there's about to be a shift. And there's been significance all along, but I want to take a deeper dive. So I'm going to take a deeper dive into this book so that I can share with you guys some of the nuggets that I am discovering. And this is a picture of the queen that she shared. This was the last episode of the movie. That's the picture of Queen Sophia Charlotte. And she's a Black woman, right? And she reigned for 57 years as the wife of King George III. King George III. So I'm going to be reading a little bit from chapter 1 about Charlotte's early years, just to share some enlightenment. So it goes something like this. Imagine living in a castle your entire life and being raised as a German princess, as part of a royal family. This was the life of Princess Sophia Charlotte, a lovely, energetic girl with a light brown complexion, large brown eyes, thick curly hair, and pretty full lips. Charlotte was born May 19th, 1744, in the picturesque city of Myro, in Mecklenburg-Strelitz, northeast Germany, 150 miles west of the famous city of Berlin. Her family was known as the House of Mecklenburg. How many of you know or ever heard that Charlotte Mecklenburg County? It's named after her, actually. Strelitz in her community was called the Grand Duchy of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. The historic city of Myro was dotted with old castles, churches, villages, market towns, and German cultural centers of learning. Her family were political leaders of the region with a heritage that went back hundreds of years. Charlotte was eighth in a family of 10 children, born to the dynamic Duke Charles Louis Frederick and his capable wife, Duchess Elizabeth Albertina, August 4th, 1713 through June 29th, 1761. Prior to her birth, her parents had lost 3 baby girls who died at childbirth. So when Charlotte was born healthy, the family was understandably thrilled, and she received a great deal of love and attention. Charlotte's parents spent a lot of time preparing Charlotte and her siblings to be solid members of the German ruling class. Now, I want y'all to remember that part. The German ruling class. So she's German. Her brothers and sisters were Duchess Christina, Duchess Caroline, Duke Adolf Frederick IV, Duchess Elizabeth Christine, Duchess Sophie Louise, Duke Charles II, Duke Ernst Gottlieb, Duke Gotthelp, and Duke George Augustus. Her oldest brother, Duke Adolf Frederick, was heir to the Mecklenburg-Strelitz Empire behind their father, Duke Charles Louis Frederick, and he took over the leadership of the family where their parents passed away. As a young girl, Charlotte loved school. She was tutored in German, French, and Italian languages by Dr. Gensmer, a Lutheran scholar who was knowledgeable about natural history, philosophy, and literature. Charlotte learned how to fluently speak and translate the 3 languages she studied, a skill that came in handy later. She was particularly fond of history, botany, and music. According to biographer W.C. Olton, one of Charlotte's delights was needlework and being involved in household affairs. In fact, needlework was very popular in her household, and everyone did it, including her grandfather. One human story handed down within Charlotte's family was about her grandfather, Duke Adolphus Frederick III, and his love of needlework. In 1736, a young military leader who came to be known as Frederick the Great, Crown Prince of Prussia, paid a visit to Charlotte's family. When he arrived, Frederick was openly surprised to find Duke Adolphus, Charlotte's grandfather, embroidering a beautiful dressing gown. Frederick later joked about the incident since, just as in modern times, it was unusual for men to embroider gowns. But Duke Adolphus enjoyed his embroidery, and his interest in designing clothes helped Charlotte to develop an interest in needlework and embroidery. Charlotte used her design and sewing skills throughout her life. When Charlotte was 15, her parents enrolled her in a prestigious private school called Herford Ministry of Westphalia. In the 1700s, it was unusual for girls to attend school. The boys went to school, but most young ladies in Germany received no education at all. Herford Ministry was a Christian convent established in the 16th century, where nuns and priests served as teachers for female students from upper-class families. Charlotte and her classmates were taught religion, classical European history, and were exposed to a wide range of scholars and philosophers. While Charlotte did not plan to be a nun, she was received religious and non-religious training, and she impressed her teachers with her studiousness. On March 7th, 1760, Charlotte was given the high honor of being invested as a canoness of the ministry. Merriam-Webster Dictionary notes, a canoness is a woman living in a community under a religious rule, but not under a perpetual vow. This honor was reserved for women and girls who were not nuns, but were committed to living simple and religious lives. Years later, in 1786, when Charlotte was Queen of England, she told Fanny Burney, one of her ladies-in-waiting, a story about the convents and monasteries at Hertford Ministry. She recalled, "We had Protestant nunneries in Germany. I belonged to one which was under the imperial protection." Note, Fanny Burney was known as Keeper of the Robes for Queen Charlotte from Frances kept extensive diaries and is regarded as one of the most famous, well-known female writers of her era. Charlotte's education at Hereford Ministry prepared her to be a critical thinker. In 1760, while at school, she wrote a letter partly in German and partly in French to a pen pal she addressed as Right Reverend Fellow Countryman. She wrote that she was sending back the first 2 volumes of books he had shared with her and requested more. Charlotte wrote, I also returned the first part of the works of Voltaire. Hello there! But he is for me not a quality man, and I do not want anything more of his. Charlotte's comments were bold, since Voltaire was one of France's greatest Enlightenment writers, with a tremendous influence of politicians and philosophers. While Voltaire was often controversial with faith institutions, he was a leading intellectual of his times. The fact that Charlotte was reading books by Voltaire and had opinions about his writings provides insight into the quality of her education, her natural intellect, and ability to analyze what she read. She was a smart, well-read girl. Hey sis, how are you doing? I'm talking about a book. I'm doing a reading actually from a book. The Invisible Queen, Sophia Charlotte. When I was looking at the movie on Saturday with Prince Harry and Meghan, the Queen at the end of the movie, the Queen introduced Meghan, showed Meghan the painting of this woman. And she said to her, this is the queen that's not talked about. And it's Queen Sophia. And Queen Sophia is a black woman. And she was married to King George III. And so when I went to the Black Women's Roundtable in March, I met the woman who wrote this book. And she had done this research on this invisible queen. And so when I saw that at the end of the movie, I was like, my God, there she is, you know. So I thought, let me read some of this so that my public, you know, can get some insight into her life and her years, you know, in reign, because she reigned for 57 years with the king. And she's a black woman. She's a mulatto, you know. So it's just blew me away. So I was like, there's such a rich history, and we don't know all of the truth, and so we kind of have to delve ourselves into these books, you know, to know who we are and where we come from. So I was just doing a little bit of reading from this book and talking about Charlotte in her earlier days. A lot of missing knowledge, exactly. So we get to the book point in Charlotte's early years with her musical training. They're talking about her musical training now. Charlotte's father, Duke Charles Frederick, taught her how to play various instruments and to sing and harmonize in a choral group. She played the harpsichord, a keyboard instrument similar to a piano, and she played the glockenspiel, an instrument with 2 small hammers that tapped out melody. You know, those look like a xylophone? During family gatherings, a Miro Castle, Charlotte accompanied her father, brothers, and sisters when they sang together in a family ensemble. She loved to sing. Her natural talent for music became important later, during her reign as Queen of England. So Charlotte, the invisible queen, she was the invisible queen, is resurfacing. She's resurfacing through the life of Meghan. We are really about to see a shift in the paradigm when it comes to the rule, when it comes to ruling, the ruling of governments and the ruling of nations and a coming together of people, right? Where it all started. You know, Obama always said, he said at the Liberty Bell, it started here and it ends here. I remember that. It starts here with independence and it ends here with the Liberty Bell. This was the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. I thought that was kind of ironic that he said that with the Liberty Bell, right? Liberty, freedom, right? A liberated people, right? That's my philosophy on that. So the author goes on to talk about Charlotte's letter to the King of Prussia. Frederick the Great of Prussia. As a canoness at the Hereford Ministry, Charlotte learned compassion for people, animals, and nature. She also developed a strong sense of social responsibility for people in need. Charlotte demonstrated her compassion when she was 14, and there was a major conflict in Europe known as the 7 Years' War. This war, that began in 1754, is the first recorded global conflict and involved Prussia, Australia, Britain, France, and Spain. Frederick the Great, her grandfather's friend, was the leader of Prussia and the top military leader in the war. In 1757, Charlotte learned that Frederick the Great's military strategy had led to fighting in the cities of Saxony and Hanover, areas close to where she led to fighting in the cities of Saxony and Hanover, areas close to where she lived. To her horror, some of her neighbors in Mecklenburg-Strelitz were being harmed by the wars and the battles. Although she was only 14, Charlotte wrote a strong letter of protest to His Majesty Frederick the Great and expressed her concerns about the toll the war was having on her neighbor. And she attached the letter. Charlotte's letter to Frederick the Great provides insight into her awareness of the limited role women and girls had in politics. This was particularly important to me, given where we are today with women on the rise in politics, and showed she was aware of the unusual nature of her protests. That pushback, right? In her letter, Charlotte commented that Frederick the Great might find her letter to be unbecoming of her sex. Sounds like Megan's protest, right? But she sent the letter anyway. This willingness to speak out against the war showed self-confidence and strength of conviction. While it is not known if Frederick the Great ever responded to her concerns directly, her letter was circulated throughout Europe and caused quite a stir. Subsequent actions on the part of Frederick the Great indicate he did not order his troops to refrain from violence in some of the areas near Mecklenburg-Strelitz. Perhaps Charlotte's letter did have an influence on her grandfather's friend, but whether it did not, the fact Charlotte wrote the letter showed that a 14-year-old teenage girl could have a voice. Isn't that interesting? Particularly with all that's going on with the children, and how they're liberating our government. So the letter, I'm going to read the letter real quick, and I'm going to stop right there. And tomorrow I'll talk a little bit about what it was like living in the castle. So Charlotte's letter says, "May it please your Majesty, I am at a loss whether I should congratulate or condole with you on your late victory, since the same success which has covered you with laurels has overspread the country of Mecklenburg with desolation. I know, sire, that it seems unbecoming my sex, in this age of vicious refinement, to feel for one's country, to lament the horrors of war, or wish for the return of peace. I know you may think it more properly my province to study the arts of pleasing, or to inspect subjects of a more domestic nature. But, however unbecoming it may be in me, I cannot resist the desire of interceding for this unhappy people. It was but a very few years ago that this territory wore the most pleasing appearance. The country was cultivated, the peasants looked cheerful, and the towns abounded with riches and festivity. What an alteration at present from such a charming scene! I am not expert at description, nor can my fancy and add horrors to the picture. But sure, even conquerors themselves would weep at the hideous prospects now before me. The whole country, my dear country, now lies one frightful waste, presenting only objects to excite terror, pity, and despair. The business of the husbandman and the shepherd are quite discontinued. The husbandman and the shepherd are become soldiers themselves, and help and ravage the soil they formerly cultivated. The towns are inhabited only by old men, women, and children, perhaps here and there a warrior, by wounds or loss. If limbs rendered unfit for service, left at his door, his little children hang round him, ask an history of every wound, and grow themselves soldiers before they find strength for the field. But this were nothing. Did we not feel the alternate insolence of either army? It happens to advance or retreat in pursuing the operations of the campaign. It is possible to express the confusion, even those who call themselves our friends create, even those from whom we expect redress, oppress us with new calamities. From your justice, therefore, it is that we hope relief. To you, even children and women may complain, whose humanity stoops in the meanest petition, and whose power is capable of repressing the patent injustice. I am. She was queen material. And so, guys, that is my reading for tonight about Queen Charlotte and some of her earlier years. The letter that she wrote to the King of Prussia during the war, what it looked like. It seems so befitting at this time to really discuss this book, given, the marriage that's coming with Prince Harry and Meghan. This is his descendant. Prince Harry is a descendant of a black queen. In case you didn't know, Prince Harry is the descendant of a black queen. Her name is Sophia Charlotte. If you've ever heard of the city Charlotte, Mecklenburg, it's named after Charlotte's queen, Sophia Charlotte. That's her name. She was the invisible queen that no one ever talked about. But she's also talked about at the end of the movie. For any of you who have watched that movie, My eyes were this big when I saw her, when I saw her picture on the wall. And it's a true story. So the queen actually shared with Meghan, hey, let me show you something. This is the queen that no one talks about. She is both black and white. Isn't that something? So I just think it's just a great time to really have these discussions. What's the name of the movie? It was The Royal Wedding. You know, The Royal Wedding came out on Lifetime on Sunday. And it was 3 hours long. But it was the true story of Meghan, of how Prince Harry met Meghan. And how, you know, what he had to go through to get the Queen's blessing and to marry Meghan. And so or the movie. You got to get Lifetime or the movie, right? Lifetime or the movie. But it was a great movie, and this is an even better book. This is an even better book, and so I'm going to be back tomorrow. I'm going to read a little bit more about what it was like living in the castle, the rich environments. You know, just kind of. Actually, I probably should have just finished it off because chapter 2. It's only like one little part, so maybe I'll just finish it, right? So, because chapter 2 starts tomorrow, talks a little bit about some other things. Some real quick, it's just one page. She talks about living in the castle. Hey, Boosted Site 3, thank you so much for joining. Charlotte's family home was Miro Castle, a place known by the Germans as Schloss Miro, or location of peace. Mir is a Slavic word, Slavic word, that's German, Slavic word, which stands for joy or peace. The castle was in the town of Miro, near the city of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, 150 miles west of the city of Berlin. The area was large, somewhat desolate area, prized for beauty and simplicity, bordered on the east by Poland, on the north by the Baltic Sea, on the west by the Lower Saxony, and on the south by the city of Brandenburg. The city still exists, and travelers can visit it in Germany today. Miro Castle was built in 1707 by architect Joachim Borkmann, who was commissioned by Charlotte's grandfather, Duke Adolphus, to build a unique building. The castle sits in the middle of an English-style park and became known for its beautifully decorated ballroom of red salon, lined with silk, hello there, Oppression H, lined with silk Chinese-style wall coverings. After the German Revolution in the early 1900s, when the Mecklenburg royal families were removed from power, Miro Castle became a museum and was later used as a Russian granary. Some of this stuff I'm going to have to look up, right? During the 20th century, from 1951 to 1978, the castle was used as a retirement home. However, in the late 1970s, a Russian named Duke George Alexander worked to restore its earlier beauty. Beginning in 1999, renovation began on the castle that was scheduled for completion in 2014. So this is all some recent stuff. Charlotte's family also owned a second palace known as the Palace at Neustrelitz, located near the region of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. Charlotte and her family lived in both places during different times of the year. Nature-rich environment. Let me show you the place. Let's see if you can see it. This is what the castle, this is what they're working on now. So it's still, we're still renovating it as landmark preserve, land preservation, right? So the Mecklenburg Lake area where Charlotte and her brothers and sisters grew up was nature rich with beautiful parks and clear water lakes filled with fish. They could walk to tree-filled woods and local gardens where they learned how to grow plants. That explains her love for botany and work with animals. The Mecklenburg Lake area was the 1,000 miles of coastline where the lakes, rivers, and canals flow into hundreds of beaches and bluffs. Many varieties of birds migrate annually to the lake, including eagles, black storks, herons, and thousands of cranes and wild geese. Today, the area is known as National Muritz Park, and tourists from all over the world travel. Was Charlotte's mom black? Charlotte was mulatto. Charlotte was mulatto. So yes, her mom was black. Today, the area is known as National Muritz Park, and tourists from all over the world travel to the park to enjoy boating, kayaking, camping, and the beautiful natural landscape. Charlotte and her brothers and sisters played in the waters of Muritz Lake, known as the Small Area, a small sea linked into waterways between Berlin and Hamburg. They could boat across Muritz Lake to see the impressive sea and landscape that connected directly into the heart of Mecklenburg Starets. Today, visitors can see some of the birds Charlotte saw as a child, including storks, common herons, cranes, ospreys, and sea eagles, as well as red deer, otters, beavers, and raccoons. Visitors can also see the historic buildings in Miro that were there during Charlotte's era, including old churches, manors, and castles in surrounding small villages and towns. So that is my reading for tonight, chapter 1 of The Invisible Queen. This is Sophia Charlotte. Sophia Charlotte, Queen Sophia Charlotte, the Invisible Queen, to Prince. This is Prince Harry. He's the descendant of a black queen. In case you didn't know that. This is about education today, guys. This is a new book by an author that I met. She did the research. She did some research on this queen earlier last year, and the book came out in March. And the author's name is Stephanie Myers. Stephanie Myers. And this is a biography of Sophia Charlotte, Queen of Britain and Ireland, during 1761 through 1818. She was married to King George III. I hope you guys enjoyed chapter 1. I'll be back tomorrow to share chapter 2 as we learn about this beautiful black queen, right? Thank you so much for joining, everybody. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that there are a lot of places named after her? Like Charlotte. I didn't know that Charlotte Mecklenburg. You're welcome. Charlotte Mecklenburg is named after her. It's a lot of websites. A lot of things I'm going to share with you guys. I didn't either, girl. I'm over. I'm overjoyed, Ramona. I'm just totally. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, my name is Dr. Eve. I am a researcher, educator, entrepreneur, consultant, but tonight I'm enthralled by this good wisdom about Queen Sophia Charlotte, the Black Queen. She was married to King George III. So I'm going to be back tomorrow, guys. This is Dr. Eve. Have a good night. I'm going to go. So thank you so much for joining me. Please share the video. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Same time. About 10 o'clock. Sounds good. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining, Ramona. Bye.